This is the control panel from a broken MAME arcade cabinet. I figured I might as well save this control panel because I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh, this would be perfect for a project idea that I had. Basically, I made a game on my website, connight.net. The game I made recently is SaladWar, and it basically you just move around with in 4 directions, and you can shoot in 4 directions. That's like the basic premise of the game. And so my mom, when she tried to play it, she kept telling me that she would have a much easier time playing it if she had a joystick. So I was thinking I should build a microcontroller joystick keyboard. So basically, it would just be a joystick that does the inputs of the arrow keys or does the inputs of WASD as the keyboard. And it should be a fairly simple thing to do. Right here, like that is the joystick. They're just switches right there. So I could just wire that into one of the pins in the microcontroller, wire it up as a button, wire it as, for each of the 4 directions, wire it as a button, and just set those to be the arrow keys. The chip I'm going to be using is the Arduino Pro Micro. So after fighting for a while with this device to upload a sketch to it, I was able to. So now, since there's no header pins, I'm just going to run a 10K ohm resistor from the pin directly to ground just to test that the device is working, like that. And so the test script that I have is just set. So if pin 9 is set to low, then type a Z and then wait 1 second and check again. So now what we need to do is wire up the joysticks to the microcontroller so that the switches on this side will be WASD and the switches on this side will be the arrow keys. So now I'm going to need to cut these wires and remove these 4 screws. Alright, so after getting in there with my scissors and my screwdriver, this is what we have. It's time to wire it up. So from some research that I've done, it definitely seems like this is the motherboard. And I guess that makes sense, seeing as there's VGA right there, and I think this right here is the power. But yeah, so I'm gonna set this to the side, and then maybe in the future I'll try and see if I could get this thing to boot up. Alright, so now I wrote some new code that takes 4 pins, takes pin 9, 8, 7, and 6, and sets those to WASD, and then it checks when the pin initially goes low and starts pressing the key, and then once the pin goes high, it releases the key. So we're going to test that with SaladWar and just make sure that that works. I'm going to have to use the resistor to connect the pin to ground and then see if it moves. Well, looks right there like it's working. Alright, let's try moving down. Alright, that looks to be working, and then let's try moving to the right. And that looks to be working as well. Alright, so seems like all 4 of the directions are working. So now I need to wire the 8 pins of the microcontroller that I have set to be the input to the 8 pins of the joysticks. Since this switch is the top right here, that's going to be W. So this is what's going to be wired to pin 9. Got out the soldering station, and I'm going to need to strip these wires. Here's the first wire stripped. I just used scissors. Alright, I soldered in my first wire. Not too pretty because I'm not amazing at it, but I'm going to test and make sure that it works by connecting the ground, one of the ground wires from here to ground on the chip, and then plug it in. Tracing all the way through here to here to here. It seems like this is the one that I should use for ground. As for one, it's in the middle, so it'll be easier to connect both of these to it. Plus, this is the ground that was connected to motherboard, and so I won't have to cut any of those wires if I just use this one, which is already cut. Got a little bit of a better solder joint on that ground wire. Now I'm gonna go test it on the computer. All right, so now when I press up, we should get a W. Let's see what happens. Nothing. Oh, but when I press down, I get W's. Okay. So that just means I wired it wrong. But that's not a problem because I can just change the code to match that. So I was wondering why that was wired backwards, because it's the top part, and that's the top part. You'd think that would be W, but then I realized when you press this switch, it goes this way, and you see it presses, that's me pressing it up. So then if I press down, it presses up. So I mean, that makes sense. I just didn't realize that before. So wiring the rest of this side should be fairly straightforward. All I have to do is connect the rest of these wires to pins 8, 7, and 6. And ground's already connected, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I'll have to wire these ones, but I have to untangle these, find the ones from here, and wire that into 5, 4, 3, and 2. And then wire this red one here that connects to all these grounds. I'll have to wire that into one of the other grounds. Just strip this wire, and since this is on the left side here, when I flip it over, that should be on the right side, meaning when I move the stick left, then it activates this switch, so this should be A. And there's that. And since I wired W to down, I'm just gonna wire up to S, and then I'm just gonna switch them in the code. Just switch what pins they are. So this is gonna be S. All right, that one's wired now. Time to do the last one for this side. And there's the last one done. So I could go test these 4 right now and make sure they're working, but I'm just gonna do the others first. And then once I have them all done, then I'll go test. So after looking a bit closer at how this bundle is connected, this red is not connected to here, which kind of sucks. This red actually goes to here, I think, which is not what we want. So I'm going to have to connect another wire to one of the ground pins, or disconnect one of them from the switches or something like that. I could actually disconnect one of these wires here and connect it to this ground, because that's the ground that goes into the chip, and then they'd all be, tied to ground. Problem is this right here might not reach that. Well, I tried and it does not quite reach, but that is okay because I opened up a little part there for a new wire to be soldered on, a longer one. I just went and got this wire and stripped it, so now we can connect it from there to there. All wired up now. Time to plug it in and test it out. So here we are on SaladWar. Let's test up, which we expect to go down. Oh, so down we go up. Okay, so right and left are inverted, and it looks like left and down are tied together, and then down goes up. So whenever I go left, yeah, okay, that's a problem. Let's test the firing. Up, down. Okay, left goes right, and right goes left. So I'm gonna have to fix the 2 that are tied together, and then I'll just change in the code for the rest. So the orange and the blue right here, the little overhang was too long, and they were twisted together. So I guess that's a lesson for you when you're soldering. Don't make those wires too long. Snip them off so that they don't touch. All right, now that we snipped those wires, let's test again. Up. Okay, we go down. Down. Left. Right. Okay, so we just have to invert all those in the code, and then shooting. Up. Down. Left. Right. All right, so we just have to invert the sides on those. All right, I just re-uploaded the sketch. Let's see now. Up. All right, that's good. Down. Left. And right. And let's check this side. Up, down, left, right. All right. So I figured before I actually close this thing, I should wire up these buttons, like these, reset, and then there's actually also an LED there. I figure I'll wire that up too, just for fun. I can't wire these bottom ones because they're not connected to anything for some reason. They're just plastic and there's nothing down there. I've now soldered all of the buttons except one, and that is this one right there, because the wire wouldn't reach. So I just desoldered the wire from the switch, and now I'm gonna solder on a new wire that I just cut. All right, I just connected that cable from there to there. So now I need to ground these two switches because they are not grounded like the rest of them. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, that should be good. I wired that one to ground over there. And then I wired this one to this one. So now the last thing left to do is to wire the LED here. Problem that I have, I don't know which side is the anode and which side is the cathode. Because an LED will only accept current flow in one direction, so I have to make sure I connect, these to the right pins. Normally on an LED, the shorter of the two legs is the one you connect to ground, but in this, the legs don't really seem to be a distinguishable size, so I'm just going to test it by putting the pins into the microcontroller, just setting them in there or touching them to the sides of the pins, and then see which is which. And then once I have figured it out, then I will solder it. Just tested it, and the green wire is the one that gets connected to the pin, and the yellow is what gets connected to ground. So I'm going to go solder that up. Just wired up the LED, ground to there, and then the green to the pin. All right, so as you can see, the LED is lit up. So let's just run another test of the buttons. All right, and then reset, and there we go. So here's the wood base that I cut out. It's kind of tall, but that's fine by me because I think that'll add some weight to it so it won't move as much. Here, as you can see, I kind of organized the wiring a bit and I glued it all. And then there's a big mess over here because I glued this chip upside down and then had to peel off all the hot glue that was down here, flip it over, because this part up here is the top. So I had it facing the other way. When you're like prototyping, I guess, make sure you don't use a lot of hot glue. And then once you use a little bit, and then once everything's in place properly, then use a lot. So just doing a test fit. Already, even though nothing's attached, this control panel is moving less. Connected the box together with some screws and drilled a hole in there to fit the cable through. Going to now screw the top panel into the bottom part because right now it's not connected. So I was trying to use wood screws, which they wouldn't go in far enough because of the way the head is shaped. So how it goes in. So I'm gonna get some different screws. There we go. 2 screws in, put washers there too to distribute the force on the plastic. 2 more to go. What I've been doing is using this punch with the hammer to get a little dent in there so that the screw doesn't move around, or the drill bit doesn't move around. All right, there we go. There's 4 screws in it now, and before the bottom part was attached, it was very light, so moving the joystick would move the whole thing. But now that all that extra wood is on there, it's heavy enough to where you can do this without the whole control panel moving. So now it's pretty much done. I'm just going to plug it in and make sure it still works. So here's a bit of a test run of me playing SaladWar. Honestly, it's fully working. It's responsive. It's pretty much, to me, I still think I'd prefer the keyboard, but and then I programmed, since you can't shoot in all directions at once like you can normally on a keyboard, I programmed a button to do that, and then I made another button, press R, which restarts the room. And if you're wondering how I'm holding the camera, it's taped to my face.